Hey, everybody, I need your help. Secrets of Powerful Women has been nominated for Best Podcast in the Best of Long Island contest. Please support my mission by going to bestoflongisland.com and voting every day through December 15th, 2025. Vote in the arts and entertainment category and then go to the subcategory for podcasts and then find Secrets of Powerful Women there. It's towards the end. So thank you so much for nominating me and helping me win. You are awesome, and keep believing in yourself. Thanks, everybody. This show is sponsored by PowerfulWomenUSA.com. Hey, everybody, I'm Jill Conway, and this is Secrets of Powerful Women, a show dedicated to celebrating and supporting strong and successful women and sharing their stories. I'm hoping you will be inspired to pursue your own dreams, reclaim your voice, and discover your strengths. So my guest today is Alison Maloni. Alison is an award-winning journalist on Newsmax. She is best-selling author with a new book out, and she is an owner of Allison May Communications. I mean, could you do any more? I don't think so. She's also passionate about empowering others. So Alison, thank you for joining us and welcome in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're great. Oh my God. You do so much. So before we tackle everything that you do, let's talk about your book, and it's called Rising Above: Empowering Stories of Women Overcoming Adversity. So let's start there. So tell me about the book. Like, why did you write it?
Sure. I wrote the book because I had interviewed a woman on Newsmax a few years ago, and she was sharing the story about her two sons who died of fentanyl poisoning. And, you know, in TV, you only have a certain amount of time. And I think they gave me a little extra. So maybe I had 5.5 minutes for the segment. And I thought, this isn't enough time. I mean, she just has such a powerful story, not only about what she went through, but what she's doing and how she's trying to save other children and educate parents. So I said, you know what? I need to write about her, but there's so many other women in the world who have overcome obstacles. And not only have they overcome the obstacles, but they're doing something different. They're making a difference, whether they're writing books or speaking to Congress or starting podcasts, but they're all doing something to help other people. So I just started putting a list together of women I know and reached out to some women I didn't know, interviewed them through Zoom, and then just put their story together. And there's 10 stories. My story is the last one. And I wasn't going to put it in there because, one, it's not as impactful as these other women. But then I thought, you know what, if they're brave enough to share their story, then I can share mine as well.
Right. You want to tell us what your story is? Because yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. I lost a lot as an early child. I lost my mom at the age of 4 to cancer. And my dad, a Vietnam vet, had PTSD. So he just couldn't handle raising a daughter on his own. So I went to go live with my grandparents. My grandmother shortly after that passed away. So I went to go live with my aunt and uncle. So within a few years, I had lost a lot in my life. I had to change schools, make new friends, move to a different city. And then, my therapist will tell me now it's because I wanted to control something. But a little boy at the age of 9 told me that I was fat. And those words just stuck with me. So I developed an eating disorder in 4th grade. And thank God, my aunt and uncle were on top of it. And I got therapy and I was better after that. And life was pretty easy after that, did all the normal things that a child did and went to college. And then, just the regular things, career transitions, a divorce, being a single mom, having $10 to my name, not knowing how I'm going to pay my bills. I had let my business go, and there was a lot more to it. But I focused on prayer. I focused on my community, and I sat there for a little while and said, "All right, I got to put my big girl pants on. I have to do something to change this life," and that's what I did.
Wow. Wow. So you write this book about all these incredible women, but right, I mean, your story it's sad that you had to go through all of that. Obviously, I mean, it's devastating for you, but you you talk about defying the odds, talk about, overcoming adversity. I mean, you could be the poster child for this. Right. So, I mean, what is it that you found? You mentioned your faith, which I love. But what was it that you think that really helped you get through some of the darkest moments?
Sure. My family, I have a large Italian family, thanks to the family that I was brought into with my aunt and uncle, and they, Italians, they stick together. And when there is a time that you need something, they're there. I remember my cousin bringing over food. She's like, "You need to eat. You're losing too much weight." And so, just family, friends, and it was just one of those things that I woke up one day and said, "Okay, I can't continue on this path. I need to change things. How do I do it?" And it was like one step after the next. I read a lot of books. I listened to a lot of podcasts. Huge Mel Robbins fan, huge Gabby Bernstein. Uh, Wrote every day 10 things that I'm thankful for. And sometimes it was, hey, I'm thankful I have money in my bank account to go grocery shopping, or I'm thankful I just got this new client. So I really just every day gave myself 3 goals, and it could be very, very small. I remember in the beginning it was, okay, I have to get dressed today, or I have to make some calls today. And from there, it took time, therapy
Mhm.
also, and just kind of worked through a lot of the issues I had from all of the loss. I had been engaged and found some things out. So that had ended. And that's where my business kind of took a nosedive, because I'd put that person before me, before my children, before my business.
Mm.
So it was just one day at a time, and started getting more clients. And then all of a sudden, I started appearing on Newsmax, and I had been pitching one of my clients to be on Newsmax, and they had asked me to come on. And from me contributing, it lent to me starting 4 shows on the network. And I've been with them for 7 years, and I get to still be in TV, but make my own schedule. I'm able to say I can be in New York these days, or I can be remote. So it's a great, great flexible opportunity for me to still be able to share people's stories and interview people, and share their stories.
Wow. So, but you had a past of in journalism,
Mm. I did.
right?
Yeah, I wanted to be a news reporter since I was 9. That's what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
I'd go home after school, and I'd go through our local newspaper, and I'd write scripts out, and I would dress up. I would have my, pretend it was like we didn't really have computers back then. So it was one of those word
Right.
processors. I pretend I was
Mhm.
writing scripts out, and I put on the newscast. I would put on the news every night instead of riding my bike around playing with my friends. I would pretend I was a journalist. And I had a great mentor who was a local news anchor, who now is a professor at a college. And I still keep in touch with her, and went to school for it. And then started as the morning producer, doing everything, and assignment editor, and got my job at a small TV station in New York as a one-man band, and kind of worked my way up.
Wow. That's remarkable. That's remarkable. But not only that, I mean, you built. I want to go back to the really bratty kid in school. I want to go back
Yeah.
there because I feel like that's a story that every woman can relate to. But I want to continue on this path for a second because so you started. I mean, the one man band, was it New York One?
No, it was in
Did you
Poughkeepsie. It was News Center 6, Poughkeepsie, New York.
right? So oh my goodness, which yeah. So you started there and that's a very difficult thing. So I don't know if I don't know how many people know what that is, but that's when the reporter is doing the camera work, writing the scripts, being in front of the camera. It is a very difficult job and I feel like more and more stations unfortunately are going to that. And I just don't think it's fair or right to keep, making all these people do this. I just don't think or safe,
Yeah.
to be honest. So, um, but so you did that and then you got your break, but I love that you were pitching other people for Newsmax when they said, "Hey, is that the oh my god moment?" Like, for you?
It
Or
was because so when I got out of TV, I had moved my way up. I had been in Springfield, Mass, and then I went to the Providence, Rhode Island market. And at that point, I had I had this moment where I think a lot of journalists do. I don't know if I can do this anymore. You don't make a lot of money. You're working nights, holidays, weekends, and Thanksgiving morning when I'm standing out there at 5 in the morning, I'm thinking, what am I doing this for? So I got out,
Mm,
and I remember my news director, he was amazing, and I still talk to him this day. He's like, "Please don't leave. You wanna go to network, you're going to make it to network, just don't leave." And I said, "Gary, I'm just done. I'm done. I want a normal job.
Mm.
I want to buy a house. I wanna have kids. I can't do this. I don't wanna keep moving from market to market." And I got out of the business, and then years later thought, "Oh, it'd be nice if I could go on, the network news and be a contributor." I always kind of had that in my mind, but I didn't think that would
Right.
happen. And the journalist for Newsmax happened to have family who was near me. So we just started communicating. And I happened to say, "Hey, if you ever need anyone to talk about crisis communications or PR marketing, happy to come on." And I never thought that they would do that because they're mainly focused on political stories, foreign policy. And then
Right.
John Bachman called me. He said, "Hey, can you come on and talk about Jeff Bezos's divorce?" This was about 6 or 7 years ago. And I said, "Sure." So I zoomed in from the kitchen table, and then they kept asking me back, which is what I always tell my clients: say yes, because you never know where that will lead you to.
Right. Oh my God, I love that. I love that. No, it's so cool. It's just so cool because, right? I mean, I feel like if it's in your path, it will come, it will come. But
Yeah.
did you, when you were like getting that moment and now you're there multiple, 3 or 4 days a week and you're anchoring. And so they obviously love you and what's not to love, right?
I hope so. Yeah, I've been there for a while, and they've been so kind to me. I've written about a few people in the book, in my story. They've just given me opportunities. They work with me with my schedule. I remember one of the leaders who said, "You could have your own show, but you have to move to New York." And I said, "I can't. My kids.
Mm,
We live in Massachusetts. My kids are here. I'm divorced, so they're with their dad one week. They're with me. I don't want to pull them out of school." So and I tell people too, sometimes you sacrifice, and it's okay. It's okay. My kids come first. So if I can't have my dream job, that's okay, because you don't get a do-over with your kids. And
mm,
that's really the
mm,
main reason why I got out of TV, because I wanted to have a family. I didn't want to be working nights, holidays, and weekends. And so they're so kind to me that I get to say, "Here, I'm available these days," or I can zoom in. Tomorrow morning I'm going on, and to do a little fun, quick segment, I'll zoom in. I'll probably have my sweatpants on and a nice shirt on, and after that, go back to work. And so that's
mm,
the wonderful thing. And I always tell people too, you never know if you don't ask. I probably
mm,
wouldn't have been able to do these remote hits or do certain things if I didn't ask. And I think as women, and I admit it, I had an email in my
mhm.
drafts that I wanted to send for 2 months because I was so scared. What if they say no? What if they get mad? What if this? And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
what if they say yes? What do you have to lose? And I have to remind myself that all the time when I want things, just ask for it, because you never know what will happen.
Mm. Ooh, I love that. Your story resonates with me because I'm the same way. I left news like, I guess 10 years ago because I was burnt out.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't think listeners really understand, right? When you see people like on a morning show, they're getting up, it's not at 4 a.m. when it starts. Like they are getting up 1:30, 2:30, getting in there. And not only do you have to look like you're pulled together, but you also have to be aware, awake enough and aware enough to be able to speak
Mhm.
and speak intelligently and know these stories and do the copy editing beforehand. I mean, it's not easy.
It's
It is not easy.
It's not. And, to think on your feet too, because, the
Yeah.
teleprompter will go down, a guest doesn't show
Yeah.
up, there's breaking news. And so, those
Yeah.
hours, you're never getting your 8 hours of sleep, or let alone 6 hours of sleep, especially that Sunday night, because you're still on weekend mode. So to try and go to bed at,
Right.
7 o'clock at night, especially with kids, it's not possible. And so
Mm.
I've done different shifts in the news. I think I've done every shift. And I will say that morning shift, that is the hardest
Mm.
shift, because you are
Yeah.
so tired. And I always tell my husband, I would call him after the show, and fortunately I go back to the hotel that they put me in if I'm staying over more than one day. And I say, "I feel like I'm hungover, but I didn't have a sip of
Yeah.
alcohol. It's that lack of sleep." But you
Yeah.
have to be on your game. And but if you love it, you love it. But then also, when there's a time that a lot of people I know who've gotten out because their bodies have broken
Mhm.
down, they've gotten sick. There's a lot of things that happen in this business.
Yeah, no, you're right, and it is very difficult, I know, like, especially and then throw in kids in the mix or aging parents
Yeah.
and right, and I mean, I remember once I was so tired, and at that point, my kids, I think, were in, like, 5th or 6th grade, and it was, like, that new math that is just
Oh,
torturous, and it was terrible, and middle school, I don't know, I feel like everyone is just the kids are at the kitchen table working until, like, 11 at night, and I didn't go to bed, and oftentimes till, like, 11 or so at night, and then I had to get up at 1:30, and I was like, "I can't." Right, like you said, you're like, at some point, you're like, "Something's gotta
yeah.
give." I love what I do. I love, like, telling people stories and doing that, but I was like, "I can't." Like, I feel like my body's breaking
Yeah.
down. Like, I just felt it's terrible, and again, it's another side of the news that people don't often talk about because you see all the news morning show anchors, especially and the big ones, they're like, "Yay, it's so great, we're a family," and it's like, it is great, and you do have those moments that keep you going where you're
Mhm.
like, "This is great. I love it. It's fun." But then when you if not everyone has to leave or not everyone makes those decisions, but I like
Right.
you. I was like, I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be there for my family. I want to put them on the bus. I want to be there when they come home and not asleep on the couch for 3
Right.
hours.
And look at you get to do this. You still get to interview people and tell people stories. So that's the wonder. It's the great thing that we have now with
Yeah.
podcasts and all these different, media outlets that we're able to do this, from our home or
Yeah.
from close to home.
Right. You're so right. And someone said that to me because I always kind of kept a toe in news a little bit with radio and things. And I was on Fox News for a little while, and then uh, I was like, oh, but it's at first it started as a radio show, then it became a podcast. But I was like, oh, it's a podcast, and so many people have podcasts. But they said, Jill, you wouldn't have been without this technology, and had you not waited, you wouldn't have been able to build what you were building. And I was like, oh my gosh, like
Yeah,
sometimes you need that little perspective of things. Like, wow, you know what? Yeah.
absolutely.
Um, but Allison, I want to talk about how you left news
Mm.
and you built your own company in PR. How did you even do that?
Yeah, it was, I wish I had this great story of, how I did it, but when I got out of news, like many journalists, you think, "What do we do now? What do we do?" And
Right.
and I
What are my skills good
right,
for?
and
Yeah,
it's so
right.
funny because I have so many friends, who've gotten out over the years, and they're like, "How do I do this? I don't have any skills." And I said,
Yeah.
"Are you kidding me? Do you know what you do for a living?" And we'd write down all the things, talk about deadline and a work life. I mean, everything that you do I think journalists don't give themselves enough credit. But most
It's
journalists go
true.
into marketing and PR. That's kind of the, the
Yeah.
the role they'll do. So I got out and I went and worked for a marketing firm just to get my feet wet because I knew I probably want to go into PR and marketing, but I never worked in the corporate world. I'd been in TV since I
Uh-huh.
was, 21 years old. So I knew nothing. I didn't know how to do a Microsoft Express spell sheet. I can't even say the word. I knew nothing. I knew nothing
Right.
about the world of corporate. So I learned that. I was able to work part time. I had my children, and by the time I had my third baby, I woke up one day and said, "I'm going to start my own PR company." And I started with a basic business plan. I had a friend do my logo, and I did a real basic website. And I walked into a friend's building. They had a jewelry store, and I said, "Do you need PR?" And he said, "Actually, I do." So I started with one small client, and then just slowly built my way. I took on what I could while having my two girls and then my baby at home, and it evolved from there. And it's been over 12 years since I've had it, which has been great. And the wonderful thing is that when I worked for the marketing agency, I was an employee, so I didn't get to pick and choose who my clients were. It was, this is what you get, and some you wish you could fire because you're not aligned with them. And the great thing about owning my business, I can pick and choose, and if we're aligned or if we're a good fit. And so I get to work with great clients. I just talked to somebody, and she's doing this whole women conference in Vegas, and I'm so excited to help her because that's my passion, is women helping other women and women business owners. So it's great when you can wake up and say, I really do love what I do.
Right, right. Well, how do you juggle both? Because that's hard for, all women, but you have two different,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, two different hats you wear.
So I made the decision to cut back a little bit on Newsmax, and just because I need to be home more, and that's where When my oldest daughter went to college last year, she's a sophomore. We just brought her back a couple weeks ago. I realized how fast time goes by, and everyone tells you that when you have kids, and you're
Mm,
thinking, "What? No, I'm like Uber. I'm at soccer. I'm here. It's not going by fast. I'm potty training. I'm in it. And then all of a sudden, I'm sending my daughter off to college, thinking, "Oh my
mhm,
gosh, she was just a baby," and I had missed. I mean, I was here, but I was in New
sure.
York more than I was here. So I decided, okay, I have my daughter she just started school today as a junior, and then my youngest who's in 7th grade. And I don't get a do-over. So I've cut back a little bit, and putting my priority in my business and speaking and maybe launching a podcast and moving forward, those types of things. But I still like you, I still have a toe, like I'm still in Newsmax, but just slowing it
Mm,
down a little bit. And that's the great thing about being a contractor. I can say, I'll be there 5 days or I'll be there 1 day. So you can't balance everything. Something has to give. And so
mm.
if my business is going to grow, I need to put more emphasis on that. So that's really what the focus has been for the fourth quarter. I can't believe we're in the fourth quarter of the year
Oh my
going
gosh.
into,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. I think that's I know. That's a tough thing for a lot of women, and myself included, to achieve that work-life balance. Do you think, I mean, sometimes I feel like there is no work-life
Yeah.
balance. Like like it's impossible to have it all in all ways. I mean, I don't know, some people say that's negative, but
No.
I just feel like something has to take your priority. You know what I mean?
I agree. I don't
S
think there's
s
work life balance either. I've tried to find the work life balance, but something gets more attention than other things. But what I've done, and I used to say yes to everything, right? And part of me was like, well, it could lead to another opportunity, and that's just how I was taught, and it's how I probably gotten where I
Yeah.
am. But I'm starting to say no. I don't know, maybe because I'm in my late 40s and just saying, okay, does this serve me? So there's things that have come my way that I just
Mm,
say, this isn't a fit right now, or this won't work, or, maybe it's a client that's going to pay me, a lot of money, but it's not the right fit. Where 5 years ago, I would have said yes, but now I'm like, because I know
mm,
how I'll feel. I know, they're going to expect more than what I can give them. And so saying no has kind of freed me up a little bit. And then just really setting my time management. I've focused on that. So I'll wake up really early. I mean, I guess 5 a.m. isn't really early, but when you're used to waking up at 1 a.m., 5,
um,
5 a.m. is
yeah.
pretty late. So
You're sleeping in. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I'm my best work is in the morning. So I try and crank out
Mm,
as much as I can between 5 and 9, and then it's, doing other things that I need to do, but um I shut it off. I try and shut my emails off. Trying to do a better job with that, but it's hard when you own a business. You don't
mm.
want to not respond to somebody, but setting boundaries. But when I can find the magic pill to the work life balance, I'll let you know because it's a struggle.
Mm. No. I'm so glad you're honest about that, because I feel like when I watch these things or see these things on social media, I'm like,
Yeah.
I disagree. Like, and then they come up with the things I've seen lately, all these millionaires or whatever, like, if you want to get ahead, you have to grind, you have to keep going, you have to push harder, which I think there is a phase of your life where you do that, right? But I think, like you, it's so funny, you're in your 40s, I'm in my 50s now, but like you reach the F it phase where you're like the F at 40s,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'm not right, or the F at 50 where you're like F it. I'm putting me
Yeah.
first. Like I'm not hustling to the point where I'm I'm doing things that I'm not comfortable doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, I think in your 20s, you get out of college, I tell my kids, you
yeah,
say yes, you work really hard, but I mean, think about it.
right.
You were in news, you have children, in so many things that you do. By the time you get in your
Yeah,
40s and 50s, you're like, okay, I need to take a breath, and I need to put myself first, because if we don't, nobody else is going to.
no,
It's that saying they say on the plane,
right.
put the oxygen mask on
Mm,
yourself first, because if we're not taking care of ourselves, everything else is gonna fall down, because everybody
right.
relies on us as women and moms.
Well, and you're also not going to get a lot of encouragement from people in your workplace to encourage you to
Yes,
to be that way, because they suffer, right?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like saying no now. It's it's like my favorite word.
Yeah, it's empowering.
Yeah.
It is empowering for sure. Yeah. So when you look, you're still working in news, but when
Mhm.
you like look at all that you've, gone through, what was the thing that really, affected you the most? Like that really changed the trajectory of your life? Was there as a certain event or something, or where or even when you said, you know what? No, not me. I'm switching gears and I'm getting, I'm gonna get what the best in life.
Yeah, I think it really was when my daughter went to college last year. I just had that eye
Mm,
opening, and it was funny because today was my daughter's first day back to school. We go back late in our town, and I was thinking of the amount of mornings I missed because I was
mm,
in New York, or I was doing other things. And granted, my kids are older, so it's like, Mom,
mm.
don't take a picture. This is stupid. I'm like, I'm taking a
Oh,
picture. I'm
yes.
coming to the bus with you.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
it was when I brought her to school, and I just realized I don't have these mom moments
Mm,
left. And so it's hard when you say no to things that obviously are paying the
yeah,
bills. And so it's
right,
this,
right.
but then, I'd have a conversation with my
Mm,
friends, and they're like, you'll figure it out. It always works out, and
yes,
people tell you that, and it's
yes,
hard to really hear that when you're in it, and you're like, I don't know how things are going to work out. I have this bill, and I'm not going to bring in the money that I used to, and how will things just fall in
right.
my lap? But they do. And so it
Mhm,
was just that realization that I have to be there more for my kids. And
mm,
if that means, and granted, like, I've lost clients, I've gained them, just like any business. But I said the other day, I said, look, if I have to go on Upwork and write press releases for people, I'll do it.
right,
I'll do whatever I
right,
need to make sure that I'm home when they get home. I'm at every gymnastics meet. I'm at every soccer game, because it just,
right.
again, it goes by so fast.
It really does. So well, 2 of my kids out of 3, the oldest have graduated college, but the 2, and I don't, are still in it, and the same thing with me, I had, brought them back. It's very traumatic. It is so
Yeah.
traumatic, right? Especially that's your first one. I mean, I just told someone the other day, I'm like, "I think I'm gonna start a support group
Yeah.
for moms," right? Like, they had the Boohoo breakfast in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, "We need, like, a Boohoo happy hour for college moms,"
I'll join.
right? Right? Because I was like, "Oh my god, it is just so, so, so traumatic, and there's nowhere you can go to really find the support where other parents, like, I think there is something there. I think maybe we'll start it,
Yeah.
Allison, but, I do think women need more support because we prepare our kids to go away to school, and then we're a mess. How did you handle that? Were you a mess?
I was. I was a mess.
Mm,
I was a mess before,
yeah.
and then just coming home, and it was just so weird because
Mm,
I was used to her coming home after school or after practice.
yes.
Even just her backpack being like in the kitchen, where I would yell at them all the time, "Take your backpack in your room." I'm like, "Her backpack's not here." It
Right.
just eating, and with
Yeah.
sports and things, we're barely eating all together, but those times we're not. It just, I felt like something was
Right.
missing. As somebody said, it's like you're missing a limb,
Mm,
and this year I thought was going to be easier, but it was in one
nope.
sense, but also it
Oh.
was hard because I just came back, and you're just used to her being home for the summer, and then she's gone. But
Mhm.
I'm just so happy for her that she's, found her people, and that she's, loving college. So then I'm like, okay, all right, she's good. She's strong and she's good. And then it makes you feel, good as a parent. But I'm in her bedroom right now. This is where I built my little
Oh, that's
studio. So she's like, "Can you move that when I come home?" And I'm like, "No, no."
oh gosh.
Taking over her room.
It's we walked that line where you're like, "Hey, I might be using your
Yeah,
room for a little
yeah,
while." I've done that where I bring, like, a lot of clothes in to either my son or my daughter, and they come home and I have forgotten, and they're
yeah.
like, "What? You're using my room?" And I was like, I mean, you weren't here for, like, a month or 2.
Yeah.
I just needed the space. I didn't mean to leave it, but that's so funny. That's so funny. All right, so let's take a quick pause here. We'll be back with Alison Maloney coming up after the commercial break. You're listening to Secrets of Powerful Women, everybody. If you love what you're listening to, please follow, subscribe to Secrets on your favorite podcast platform, and help me get the word out. Share this with your friends. It's really good. We'll be back with Alison. Hi, everybody. I'm Jill Conway. If you love what you're listening to, please like and subscribe to my channel on whatever podcast platform you listen to, and on YouTube, so I can keep bringing you these amazing women and sharing their stories. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you love it as much as I do. All right, welcome back. You're listening to Secrets of Powerful Women. Alison Maloney is here. She's amazing, and she is currently doing two things. She has her own public relations communications company, and she's also an anchor at Newsmax. So you've seen her before, and she's always busy, apparently. I don't know how you juggle it all, Alison. But oh my God, I love this. So let's talk about the book for a minute, again, because I do want people to really buy the book. And is it available everywhere?
It is. Yep. You can get it on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, Target, any online media where you can get books.
Fabulous. And this isn't your first book.
It's not. No, my first book was about
No.
PR. So a lot of people would come to me and they would want help, but they were just starting out and they didn't have a budget. So I basically put together a manual for anybody who's looking to get press, from everything on how to build your social media to how to write a pitch, how to find journalists, what to do, what not to do. Being on the journalist side, we've gotten some great pitches and some horrible pitches and dealt with great publicists and not so great publicists. So I kind of gave them all the ins and outs they need to know to try and get local press, national press. And then even once they get that interview, how do you prepare for, what should you do? A little bit of media training in the book. So it's kind of an handbook for people who want to do their own PR.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So the new book though is Rising Above: Empowering Stories of Women Overcoming Adversity. I mean, was there I think we talked a little bit about it, but you mentioned one story. But when you were going through it and then you told your own amazing story, was there when you were listening to all these women, was there advice that you wish that you had gotten through the years that maybe someone had gotten?
Yes. So it's interesting because I actually turned back to her interview and her chapter maybe about a month ago. So Samantha Harris, I'm not sure if her name sounds familiar, but she used to host Dancing with the Stars, and she was
Yeah, I loved
on,
her.
she was on some entertainment shows. And I was on a speaking circuit with her. We did this remote speaking engagement during COVID. And I said, I need to tell her story. So she is a breast cancer survivor. She's actually a two-time breast cancer survivor. So when I had interviewed her, she had a book out. She talked about her breast cancer journey, and she basically put everything she learned in one book about breast cancer, from what to eat, how to, kind of detoxify yourself, what's healthy, what's not, asking doctors certain things. So I did the interview. I wrote her chapter and I was about to submit it, and then discovered that she had breast cancer again. And so I revised her chapter, but unfortunately, like, everything's good. She's so strong and she's very out there on social media. She took everyone through the journey. She's great. She talks about her story about trusting your gut. So she had found a lump, went to the doctor. Doctor said, doesn't look like anything. We don't even need to biopsy. It's not a big deal. Went home and talked to her mom, and her mom's like, I don't know, like, maybe you should go to get a second opinion. Went for a second opinion. Same thing. Doesn't look cancerous. No need to, like, disrupt anything. You're good. Go home. Went to
Oh
a
my
third
God.
doctor because she just didn't feel right, and that third doctor, same thing, she's like, "We'll biopsy, but I'm not concerned. Like, just go home, have a glass of wine with your husband, come back, you'll get the results, everything will be fine." Well, turns
Oh
out
my God.
it wasn't. And, so her whole story is about trusting your gut and pushing and advocating for yourself, because so many times we go to the doctor and they tell us something and we're like, "Oh, okay, well, if the doctor said that, then
Right.
I'm okay." And this past July, I had an ultrasound done, and they found something. And so I was freaking out, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is happening to me. This similar situation doesn't look like anything. I wouldn't be concerned. We'll do another mammogram. We'll do another ultrasound." And but I kept pushing and pushing. It took a while to get into the doctors. It took almost 6 weeks because they were so busy. And but I kept calling, I kept pushing, and I was able to get an appointment earlier. And, not long story short, everything is fine. But hadn't
Thank God.
have I not interviewed her or listened to her and trusting your gut and advocating for yourself and keep pushing and not taking, whatever one person is saying, um, I don't know. I don't know what would have happened, but I'm so thankful for her sharing her story, and the fact that, I it was so close to home of what happened. And fortunately, everything is healthy. But a woman reached out to me over the weekend who read my book and had saw, I had posted on social media kind of the similar situation, like make sure you advocate for yourself. This happened to me. And she has breast cancer. She was diagnosed in July, and she said, reading your book has helped me. And I was like, that's why I wrote the book. Oh my gosh, if I could help one person by reading one of these
Right.
stories. And she said, this is helping me through this situation right now. So yeah, it was
Oh.
pretty powerful.
Oh my gosh. Oh wow. Well, I think, it's so funny because I just don't think many people, well, we're not taught to listen to our intuition, right?
Mhm.
We're kind of not. I mean,
Yeah, and I think that if we do push back and listen to, then, are we
mm,
crazy? Are we, are we
right.
overly
Right.
concerned? Are we just worrying about nothing? But I think you got to trust your gut. And I think if the doctor doesn't tell you something, or you don't trust their opinion, you keep going, keep asking
Mm,
for more doctors' opinions, because,
yeah.
again, they're human, right? They can make mistakes just like we do.
Right. Right. When we think about, you've been in news for a long time. I mean, do you go back and what was your first story? Do you remember what your first story was?
Oh gosh, my first story. I think my first story was was a city council meeting, and that was just so boring. I was
Oh,
like, "Oh gosh." I was hoping for something big, breaking news, but it was a city council
right.
meeting. So that was fun. And, getting to interview some of the city councilors and put together a story. And I was live, outside City
Mm,
Hall. And I don't even remember what the story was. Not it was not exciting at all. But yeah, I remember doing a lot of craft fairs, a lot of weekend stories. But I do remember there was we heard on the scanner somebody was shot. So of course, we're racing. I was the 3 to 11 shift. So, we're
mm.
trying to get ready for the 11 o'clock news. It's like 9:30. They're like, all right, if we get there, we can go live. And I had a photog who was definitely a little crazy. But he was fun. So there was traffic. So he literally takes the van, and we have this big, like, news live van, and he's going on the sidewalk to pass the traffic because we had to get to the shooting. We had to make our live shot. So it's like, yeah, you do what you have to do, and maybe you break some rules while you're at it. But he was fun. He was definitely a good photog to have.
Oh my gosh. What's the most I was asked this, like your most unforgettable story that you've ever covered? Or the most or the coolest one,
Oh,
you
the
know?
coolest. Okay. So this, I don't know if it's cool, but I joke about it. When I was in Rhode Island, and there was over the scanner, because again, like, that's how we would get a lot of our breaking news. And in
Yeah, right.
Newport, Rhode Island, Newport is beautiful. It's, there's
Yeah.
boats, and everybody goes there, for nice drinks and food. So on the scanner, there was apparently a rabid raccoon who was like attacking people. And, this was the big story in Newport. And so they joked, like, you're going, Allison, you're going to cover the rabid raccoon. I was like, this is great. And I was live, and I just remember, like, you got to do a live tease, which means, they take you before the break. And, I'm Alison Maloney. We're live in Newport, Rhode Island. We're wait till you hear what's, running around the streets of Newport. And I'm like, I can't believe we're doing a story on a rabid raccoon. But we interviewed this woman. She was older, and she was getting in her car, and the raccoon came up from underneath and, like, jumped on her, and she was hitting it
Oh
with
my
her
god.
cane. It's just something you would see out of a movie. So I always remember, when I think of Newport, and it's one of my favorite places to go to, I think of the rabid raccoon that was running around the streets. And they did finally get him or her. I'm not sure if it was a boy or a girl, but they did finally get him. So the people of Newport were safe.
Oh, that's so funny. I mean, it sounds so silly, but it's
Yeah.
interesting. I
Yeah.
mean, right? It definitely is different.
A different
Yeah.
story, when you're covering
Yeah.
fires and shootings and city council meetings, rabid
Mhm.
raccoon, we're like, all right, let's mix it up.
Right, exactly. Right. How do you like how do you de-stress after a day? I'm not talking about the raccoon, but right, I mean so much of a reporter's job when
Yeah.
certainly when they're out in the field years ago is the dark stories, the murders, the shootings and whatever. So, did you ever bring that home?
I did. So I will say, like, when I worked the 3 to 11 shift, I will say a lot.
Mm.
went out after work. It was, you're in your 20s and we would go out for a drink or two and, just kind of decompress. But when I did work that shift,
Mm.
especially when you're doing a live shot, so you're getting home around midnight and I was wide awake. So I wasn't
Mm.
able to fall asleep until, 2 in the morning because your adrenaline is going. I used to just watch a lot of like HGTV or cooking shows that would kind of calm me. Now I love
Yeah.
watching Law and Order, which is kind of funny. That helps me calm down. But yeah, I think I will say the hardest thing in it was, we all were there covering it, but probably the hardest story was 9/11. I was
Mm.
working in Springfield at that time. And so I was sleeping and my beeper was going off and it said nine. So 411 meant just call the station. And if it was 911, it meant call emergency breaking news. So my beeper's going off. I didn't have the TV on and I called in. I was like, what? I just worked
Mm.
10 days in a row. They're like, get in now. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, just come in. So obviously knew what was going on. And, that was I had cousins in New York. So I had family. I'm trying to reach them, but also trying to
Mm.
do my job. And nobody knew what was going on. And even though we were in Springfield, we were pretty close to New York and we had the airports and the schools and there were so many threats going on. The hardest thing for us is because in TV news, you have this wall of live feeds that come in. So you're getting feeds from all, the affiliates from CNN, and it's live, it's not edited, so we're seeing things that a
Mm.
lot of the public didn't see because we wouldn't air them on TV, and so we're all just trying to process it and go and cover the news, and it was just, all hands on deck, I remember getting home and I lived with my friends, my roommate at the time, and I couldn't even put words together because nobody really understood what was happening. So that was definitely, like, I would say, a good couple of weeks before it really hit us, at least my friends and I who worked in the news, of like what was going on and to be able to like to understand, the capacity and what we were
Mm.
seeing and covering. And I mean, we're only in news. I can't even imagine, what the first responders had to deal with, but that was definitely the hardest, story I've ever covered and having to just deal with it. And I tell my kids that because, they always wonder, they learned about it in school, but I kind of give them a different picture about,
Mm.
what it was like to be in the news business at that time.
Right, right. And so when you're reporting on a story like that, and still, you as an anchor and stuff like that, you're still reporting on horrific things all during the day. How do you decompress when you get home? Like, how do you kind of, or is there a way that you kind of can find your center again or not let that affect you so
Besides a
much?
glass of wine, I actually, what I try and do is I turn the news off, and I know we're supposed to be prepared, but I
Mm.
give myself some time to not go on X, to not put on the news because you just need that break because you are talking about it so much and intensely. So I will try and go for a walk. I got my weighted vest, the
Mm.
women in their 40s, we all have our weighted vests. So
Everyone's doing that.
my
I
friend my
it's
friend
just
just got
that.
one and she's like, I love it. So I'll take my weighted vest and then I'll go for a walk and I'll listen to podcasts or funny podcasts. I love the Calm Down podcast with Aaron Andrews and Carissa Thompson. So I just try and like go away from the news for a little and not think about it and just, be normal and listen to fun upbeat music and try and not think for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Is there advice for that you would give to girls or guys who want to get into the news business, at least how it is now?
Oh boy, yes. Have thick skin
Mm.
because even so, when I was in it, when I first started, we didn't have social media. So occasionally we'd get the phone calls in the newsroom, like, tell Allison not to wear that, or she should do something different with her hair, or I don't like
Oh
her.
my God.
Those types of things, or you get a letter in the mail from a viewer. So that was very few and far between. But social media now, I mean,
Mm.
people are brutal. So I do feel for anybody that's going into the business because
Mm.
people feel that they can say anything. So definitely have thick skin. I think our kids are kind of used to it now, anyways. With what has happened, with other friends. But just know that you're going to make mistakes. and watch your videos. I hated watching my live shots because I would cringe. But my old news director in Providence would bring me into his office and say, watch. And I was like, Carrie, I don't want to watch. He's like, you have to watch. If you don't watch, you're not going to get better. And then he'd be like, this is good. This is bad. And, in a nice way, but take the criticism and go with it and just keep going. Just keep going and, and just keeps a young age keeps saying yes. So if they need you to work 3 to 11, do it. If they need you to work midnight to 8, do it. And no, it's not going to be forever. There's a lot of turnaround in news. So you won't always be on that midnight to 8 shift.
Right. What's your worst blooper?
Oh, so I was covering the fall. I don't even know if I can say it now. What I always say when the leaves turn, fall foliage. I could not say that. And I was doing a live shot and I kept calling it foliage. And you know how you make a mistake and you try and you fix it, but it just keeps coming out. So that was embarrassing. And my photog was like, they would call me Maloney. They're like, Maloney, really? Foliage? Really? And I was like, I know. And I remember calling the producer. I'm like, please don't ever send me out. I don't ever want to do a fall harvest story again.
But that happens. So that's the thing. But you just, everyone, all women and men are so hard on themselves. It's crazy. It is just crazy.
And you have to, what I've learned is I laugh about it. Now I'll make mistakes and I think a couple of weeks ago, I couldn't get the word out. And I said on live, I'm like, all right, let's try this again. Let's get the word out. And you make fun of yourself. And it's just so much easier because people laugh with you instead of saying, start being negative on yourself.
Right. So you're still doing the PR communications, and obviously you're still anchoring and working in news. So, where does the future look? The next 5 years or something. What does it look like?
I'm hoping to win the lottery so I can go live on a beach in the winter. But reality is, I'd like to do more of this. I'd like to do maybe have my own podcast and tell people stories. It's in the works. I just have to pull the plug on it. So you're giving me inspiration by watching your podcast. So that could be in the future. I see another book maybe that I'd like to write about perimenopause, because that's a big topic that all my friends and I are going through. And bring a resource out there for that. But yeah, I'm not sure. I hopefully just maybe, kind of expanding the business and doing more coaching and consulting and then maybe retire in 10 years, hopefully. I don't think that's possible, but it's a goal.
Could you retire though? I feel like, when you're on a mission of helping people, it's very hard to.
No, probably not. Yeah, because I do love what I do. I really do. So yeah, it's not work when you love what you do.
Definitely. Well, that's amazing. So I hope we see another book out of you. I hope your podcast starts, and certainly I'll help you, in any way, but what you're doing. I feel like. I think you're amazing, Alison Maloney. I think you're amazing. You're doing it all. You're doing it all. So I just want to say thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your story with others.
Of course. Thank you.
And thank you everyone for listening. I'm Jill Conway. This is a show celebrating incredible women, and I hope you are inspired to pursue your own goals, believe in yourself, and dream bigger. Your voice matters, and your story can help others. I hope you join me next time and share this podcast with a friend, and follow me and Alison on Instagram.